Like I mentioned at the top of the show, it is Thursday. That means we have Thursday night football. We have been waiting months for football to be back. And then we had a taste of it, and we had to wait Tuesday and Wednesday. It was a long 48 hours for me, but I am smiling knowing that we are less than 24 hours away as we record this. How about you?
Higgins, let's just say the FanDuel Sportsbook here in New Jersey saw a lot of action on the casino from my account over these last 48 hours. Not so much the sportsbook.
So enjoying being in New Jersey, I see, with the new house a little bit. I see.
A little bit, Higgins. We are making do.
Well, let's talk about the Thursday night scenario because I think week one told us a lot about last year's worst division, the NFC East. Dallas, Philadelphia, those two teams might be the only two teams worth talking about in the NFC East. But Thursday night, we're talking about the other two teams, the Giants and the Washington football team. And this line, with it being at plus 3.5, I'm going to take the Giants while it's there because, Brett, we've talked about key numbers on this podcast before. The key number in football is 3 or 7. And you know what? I'm taking the Giants at plus 3.5 before it gets down to plus 3 potentially. And I see this being a low scoring game. We saw the Giants have no offensive output against the Denver Broncos, really. And Washington lost Ryan Tannehill, and I don't really have a lot of faith beyond Antonio Gibson on that offensive side of the ball either. So it's going to be interesting to see either of these offenses try to work, especially with what I would say each team has a rather decent defense, at least at the front line for the Washington football team, and the secondary and linebacker core for the Giants. But the offenses, both these teams are going to struggle all season long, I think. So plus 3.5, I think it's going to be harder for either of these teams to ever get a win by more than a field goal.
Yeah, Higgins, I do have some thoughts on the game. I don't particularly love the spread or the over under in this one. I could see both these quarterbacks making costly turnovers where maybe the defense scores a touchdown or two and that puts the over under in risk. I could see, you know, both these quarterbacks breaking off a long run, quote unquote, and potentially putting their team in scoring position. I don't expect a lot of passing in this one, Higgins. I expect both teams to be very run heavy on a Thursday night. So maybe I would look Taylor Heineke props. His over under in New Jersey is 33.5 pass attempts with the juice heavy on the over, minus 122 on the over, minus 108 on the under. I would actually look at the under on that number, Higgins, and say I would look Antonio Gibson to get a lot of carries, Jarrett Patterson to get a lot of carries. If he is dropping back, maybe I would look for Logan Thomas or Terry McLaurin touchdowns, but I don't think Taylor Heineke's spreading the ball around to like 5, 6 different guys. I think he's kind of locked in on target 1, target 2, and going into those guys. So that's kind of how I'd play this game. Maybe in the prop market, favor rushing props, maybe fade some passing props, Higgins.
Well, you want to talk props. You and I always look at different sides of the ball. I love to look at the positive sides. I love to look at the big hitters. So you look at touchdown props, we're talking about costly turnovers. Either of the defense potentially make a touchdown. I mean, at least I'm looking in Oregon, Washington football team's defense. It's at plus 350. The Giants are at plus 450. I don't know. I'd like to see those potentially closer to plus 500. I'd try to shop around and find something like that. But I wouldn't be surprised to see, I mean, especially with the Washington football team, a fumble recovery. Chase Young runs the football into the end zone. Potentially a pick by the Giants running in for a touchdown. I wouldn't be surprised to see a turnover and a defensive score potentially in this game. I love the player prop market on a Thursday night, absolutely. Let's take a look at Sundays, though, Brett, because you and I, well, at least I, will be waking up bright and early with the 10 a.m. games. You get to have them at 1 p.m., but we're both eyeing some of these early games.
Yeah, I'll be up early, Higgins. Don't you worry. I got my Sunday morning show, Fantasy Sports Today, on Sports Grid. So I'll be up bright and early here on the East Coast. Not really paying too much attention to this show, just setting my fantasy lineup, right?
Best of luck to the fantasy. I had 3 teams. One of my teams I'm the commissioner of, and I scored an abysmal 66 points. Everyone went single digits for me. It was brutal. I got embarrassed. Got embarrassed. It was bad. It was bad.
Oh,
But
man.
anyways, let's talk about the sports betting lines. I want to talk about a very interesting tweet that I saw. The Giants are a part of this tweet, Brett, but it really plays into effect when we are looking at Sunday's slate. And it was by a guy, Gilbert Gallant, on the FTN network. He tweeted out an NFL bet trending alert that since 2014, 60.4% of teams that lose by double digits in week 1 go on to cover the spread in week 2 and win outright 46% of the time. Now, there are 7 teams that lost by double digits in week 1. Atlanta, Tennessee, Indianapolis, Jacksonville, Green Bay, the Giants, and Chicago. I picked the Giants in Thursday's game. I have another one of these that I like in Sunday's slate as well. Indianapolis plus 3.5. Also, we have key numbers. They're facing off against the Rams. Rams have played really well on Sunday night against the Chicago Bears. I think part of that was the home opener in the brand new stadium with a packed full of fans, though they did get to carry that out a little bit. Now they're going on the road in Indianapolis. Carson Wentz did start off rather well with Indianapolis. They just played a really strong Seattle Seahawks team. So I think this is going to be a potential field goal ender, a potential low-scoring matchup, and the defenses are going to take more control in this. So plus 3.5 for Indianapolis. I'm going to be taking that while it stays outside of that key number.
Yeah, that's an interesting play, Higgins. Obviously, being the home team, getting points, always a live dog. Thought Los Angeles, the Rams looked pretty good last week against Chicago. Did not think Indianapolis looked particularly well. Was not particularly impressed by Carson Wentz, but I
He
think
started 9 for 10, but Seattle did a lot and made him have to pass, and then it made it a lot harder for him to be able to hit targets, I think. But you're right, the Rams were spectacular. Stafford, that first drive with the 67-yard touchdown, he's sitting comfortably in LA, I think.
yeah. So like I said, definitely potential for a live dog there. But I'm staying away from that one. A team I'm looking to fade, Higgins, the Las Vegas Raiders, who had a big nationwide national TV game where they beat the Baltimore Ravens, who were pretty big favorites on the road in Las Vegas. Now Las Vegas needs to travel all the way across the country. Short week, early kickoff. I hate this spot for the Raiders. Give me Pittsburgh minus 5.5. I think this one literally has nothing to do with the teams on the field. Could be anyone in Las Vegas' situation. Tough for them to cover in the NFL.
Not to mention, Pittsburgh just played a spectacular game up in Buffalo, surprising a lot of people. Now they get to go home, play their home opener. It's going to be a lot more comfortable. You mentioned the short week. Not to mention, they had to play a full extra quarter in that game, so that's going to be a little bit harder, I agree. By the way, speaking of that Monday night game, you watched the Peyton Eli broadcast, or did you watch the normal broadcast?
Absolutely watch Peyton and Eli, and there is a quite the Twitter movement, Higgins, to get the Tennessee Ole Miss game also
I like
on
that.
the Manning broadcast.
I
I
like
want
that.
to plant my flag in that camp as well, Higgins. I'm all in for that.
Next best bet is firmly in the Peyton Eli broadcast for Tennessee Ole Miss. Absolutely, I want to see that. Are you kidding me? They're going to be doing it again on Monday night. I saw a tweet asking who they should have for the Lions Green Bay game. I'm thinking Megatron. I mean, he just got his gold jacket. Seems fitting you bring him back on screen potentially if he wants to do it.
Yeah, Brett Favre and Jordan Love, for that matter, might both be available.
Absolutely. Let's stick to Sunday real quick, though, as well, Brett. I want to talk about an NFC South matchup. I talked a big game about Jameis Winston stepping in to be the starting quarterback for the Saints. He didn't throw for quite as many yards as I expected him to in week one. He still had 5 touchdown passes, but they're facing off against the Carolina Panthers. I don't expect that to be as tough of a task as Green Bay was. Green Bay laid an egg in week one, but that doesn't. I mean, that was the offense that laid the egg. The defense is still the defense for Green Bay. Carolina's defense still has a lot of questions. They only played against the New York Jets, so I still have a lot of questions on what that Carolina defense is going to look like this year. New Orleans offense still looked rather comfortable with Jameis at the helm, and with it being only -3.5, I'm taking the Saints right now on Thursday because I think that line's going to be moving.
Yeah, I'm very interested to watch this game, Higgins. The Saints were one of the teams I was not really buying in on going into the season. And week one, when they demolished the Packers, you have to be like, oh my goodness, what did I just see? So I'm curious, are the Saints for real? Are the Panthers for real? Because one of these teams is going to be 2-0, Higgins, and that is going to be huge, especially if Tampa Bay has a little trouble with Atlanta this week. Now, I expect Tampa Bay to win, but if they don't win, if they don't dominate pretty much from start to finish, maybe one of these other teams at 2-0 has enough of a scheduling advantage or something where they can maybe sneak up on Tampa Bay a little bit for the division.
Well, we're talking about planting flags in camps, Brett. I've already made my futures pick. I took the over 9 wins for the Saints. I've planted my flag that they're going to be good this year. Another team I planted my flag with was Arizona and the Cardinals over 8.5. They got a very big upset win in week one over Tennessee. And then my third future that I took there was the under 9 wins for Dallas. Now they lost to Tampa Bay, a team you mentioned earlier. I don't know how much that necessarily says about that team because Dak performed rather well in that game. So I'm very curious to see what the Cowboys team looks like with that 9 wins being where that was set at when I took that last week.
Yeah, Higgins. Well, you could look very smart with the Saints for sure. And the Cardinals. Cardinals looked very good against the Titans last week. I took a future though, Higgins, on the Seahawks to win the NFC West. And wouldn't you know it, the Titans face off against the Seahawks. Seattle, it's their home opener, Higgins. Seattle, notoriously tough place to play. Fans back for the first time in a year, or maybe not. Maybe they had fans last year, but more fans back this year,
The true
definitely.
12th man. It's
Yeah,
the true 12th man
exactly.
this year.
Exactly. Not the sixth man. We got the 12th man.
Absolutely. It is very tough to play in Seattle. It does surely get very loud there, Brett. But I think this is going to be a very interesting game. And personally, I like the Titans walking in here because I think this line going into Thursday is a little too big. It's at +5.5, at least in Oregon where I found it. And I'm taking the Titans at +5.5 right now because for one simple reason. The biggest issue that the Titans had in week one was Chandler Jones. Seattle does not have Chandler Jones on their defensive line. And their left tackle took accountability on Twitter immediately after, said he's going to be better. I expect he's going to be better this week. And Ryan Tannehill is going to have some more time. The offensive line is going to be better. Seattle is a tough place to play. You are right. But +5.5, I think that line is too big. I think this game is going to be closer to being within a field goal. I don't think it's going to be tied coming down to a game-winning field goal, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's a 4-point game and there's a final drive or something like that. I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be really close.
Yeah, Higgins, I have a lot of concerns about the Tennessee defense and DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett and Russell Wilson might even, if you believe it or not, be more dangerous than the big three for Arizona because Arizona's got a big two. but they don't have a third as good as Lockett, Higgins. So I might even be more concerned for Tennessee in this one. And, just to be honest with you, Higgins, and I did mention this in the rundown before the show. I mentioned that I'll say something. So I got to say something. I think you're betting this wrong. If you think Chandler Jones was the big problem, not the offensive line for the Titans, so Chandler Jones is so good, it doesn't matter who the offensive line is, you should be betting on the Cardinals, not betting on the Titans to bounce back. I think if your belief in the Cardinals is that strong. Personally, I read the situation like the Titans' O-line might be that bad, and Seattle's defense looked better than a year ago against the Colts in the opening game. So I think I have concerns about Julio Jones, how he looked in week 1. 3 receptions, 39 yards. That's not going to cut it for your highest paid wide receiver, Higgins. I have a lot of concerns about Tennessee's defense. I am not pushing the panic button on Tennessee. I still think they're the team to beat in the AFC South, excuse me, but color me concerned.
I understand you thinking I'm betting the wrong side of this if I'm so high on the Cardinals, and to be honest, by Sunday I probably will be betting the Cardinals. The only reason I'm not bringing the Cardinals up as a bet in this podcast, to be honest, Brett, is because I already have 10 picks.
Yeah,
I already have 10 picks, and we're trying to save some time.
What's 20
But you
picks?
know what? If I am so high on Chandler Jones, let's just bring it back to July real quick. I did have a future that I boasted about on this podcast, did not make an official podcast pick, but I said that I thought he was going to be a potential defensive player of the year candidate. He moved up from plus 4,000 odds to plus 800 odds just after his week 1 performance because he had 5 sacks and 2 forced fumbles. So instantly seeing some value in terms of cashback availability there in week 1 for me, but you're right. I should probably be bringing up Arizona against Minnesota as well, especially with the Cardinals home opener. But I have 10 picks already in this game, so that's probably going to be a social media pick that I'll be making closer to Sunday.